In the heart of Abuja, the Holy Fire Assembly stood as a symbol of spiritual prestige. People traveled from far and near to worship. Some would walk long distances just to be able to attend the church. The church premises was always occupied by various luxury cars and almost every notable political leader in the country were always in attendance. Its leader, Pastor Emmanuel Kachi, was a revered man of God with a fiery passion for righteousness. People also referred to him as the embodiment of God's miracles. He performed different miracles every Sunday, and this attracted people from all around the world. The church was respected and had various members in their thousands trooping in and out of the church premises every Sunday. The church boasted a massive congregation, with its choir hailed as one of the best in the Nigeria. Pastor Emmanuel's son, Samuel Kachi, was a 21-year-old university student and a member of the choir. He was very handsome and charming. Samuel was adored by many in the church, especially the youth choir, which had various female members crushing on him. Some would even give him preferential treatment as the golden prince of the church. Among the choir members was a 17-year-old Kioma, a shy but gifted soprano. Her beauty sparked up reactions both in the community and in church. She was raised in a modest home by her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Kioma was their pride and joy. Her voice was angelic, and her commitment to the choir was unwavering. She was always punctual to church activities and made sure everyone had left before she goes home. The church felt like a second home to her, safe and sacred. Some days she would stay back in church practicing her soprano while other members had left, but danger loomed nearby, and innocent and naive Kioma was just about to fall a victim of what could dent her future. Soon, the holidays came, and it was time for students to return home and enjoy their Christmas break with their families. Samuel got home that evening, his parents very excited to see their son threw a welcome party for him. The church choir were specially invited. At this point, Samuel noticed how beautiful the girls were, and he said to himself, "So this is what I have been missing?" He nursed all sort of funny and sexual thoughts towards the girls, but there was one particular girl that got his attention, and that girl was Kioma. Samuel began looking for every possible way to sleep with Kioma, but he always ended up getting rejected by the pretty Kioma. He soon devised a plan to join the choir so that way he would be able to get close to Kioma. Indeed, his plan worked. Beneath Samuel's polished exterior lurked a darker side. Samuel was nothing short of a pedophile. He got into a series of troubles in school, but his pastor father would always use his connections to protect him. He spent all his allowances on hard drugs in school and partying with irresponsible friends. Prince and Princess University was a school for the elites of the society. The vice chancellor of the university was a devoted worshiper of the church. Samuel had made a lot poor life choices, which often led him to some bad social vices in school. While his mom believed he was the perfect example of a pastor's child, but his father, pastor, Emmanuel Kachi, never ceased to spoil him with frivolous gifts, but little did the mom know that Samuel had grown far from the values they preached. One fateful evening, after choir practice, when everyone had left the church and everywhere was scanty, so Samuel used the opportunity and walked up to Kioma asking and pleading with her to stay behind and help him arrange some instruments in the church. Naively trusting him, she agreed. In the empty church hall, Samuel began complimenting her, calling her beautiful and sweet names. He succeeded in making Kioma feel comfortable, and because he was a handsome boy, his charm disarmed her. He began touching her inappropriately, but Kioma resisted. Samuel became even more aggressive. He quickly unzipped his trouser, and before Kioma realized what was happening, Samuel had already tore her skirt and put in his joystick. Kioma's scream grew louder, but nobody could hear her because Samuel had sealed all the doors and windows. She tried all she could to resist, but Samuel overpowered her due to his masculinity. Devastated and ashamed, Kioma returned home and always in silence. For weeks, she kept the incident to herself, struggling with the emotional trauma. She could not tell anyone about it out of shame, but however, her secret couldn't remain hidden for too long. Kioma started feeling sick. At first, her mother thought it was just malaria or typhoid, so she got some medications, but after some days, Kioma's condition only escalated, and when her mother noticed her unusual behavior, she pressed her for answers. Tearfully, Kioma confessed everything, telling them how Samuel had lured him to stay behind after church, and when everyone had left the church, he ended up taking sexual advantage of her, and this got her parents heartbroken. It was a Black Friday in the house of the Okeke. They couldn't believe that the son of the man who they have so much respected and revered over the years would do this to their daughter. The Okekes were so angry that they swore to get absolute justice for their daughter. The furious and angry Mr. Okeke stormed to Pastor Emmanuel's office to confront him on a hot Saturday afternoon. Pastor Emmanuel was shocked, surprised by the actions of one of his favorite church members, and at the same time, equally embarrassed. He had no choice but to plead for patience and promised to handle the matter discreetly. He assured Mr. Okeke that Samuel would be disciplined and promised to take care of the pregnancy to avoid tarnishing the church's reputation. Reluctantly, the Okekes agreed. Trusting the pastor's word, little did they know that their revered pastor Emmanuel had other cruel and God-forsaken plans for their daughter. Pastor Emmanuel visited his old-time doctor friend, Dr. Teo, who was an old-time friend of his. He narrated everything to him, and Dr. Teo told Pastor Emmanuel not to worry by saying, "I have the cure to your problem, my friend." He opened a big cupboard in his office and dipped his hand, then brought out a pack of medicine, then gave it to Pastor Emmanuel, telling him that medicine will flush out that pregnancy. All you have to do is make sure the girl drinks all of it. That afternoon, Pastor Emmanuel sat alone in his room thinking of all the possible ways to get the task done. So he called his son, and Samuel secretly arranged for Kioma to take a medication to terminate the pregnancy. Samuel visited her with the medicine, pleading with her to drink it, claiming it would solve everything. Kioma was hesitant at first, but she was desperate to escape the situation she had found herself in. Feeling trapped and desperate, Kioma drank the concoction, not knowing the original content of it. That night, tragedy struck. Kioma began bleeding heavily and was rushed to the hospital by her parents. She bled so much that she became unconscious. After a series of tests, the doctors revealed that the unsafe termination had caused severe damage to her uterus, and that the only way to keep her safe was to run an emergency surgery on her, Mr. Okeke, and his wife, Mrs. Patricia Okeke looking bitter and angered. They did not have much of a choice at that point, so they immediately gave their go-ahead to the doctors for the operation to be carried out. They managed to save her life, but Kioma lost the baby, even though this was supposed to bring relief to their grief. It instead brought more sorrow. The family of the Okeke were hit by a second brutal surprise. The doctor approached Mr. Okeke and said, "Please, I would like to have a word with you in my office, Mr." Okeke, looking confused, began to ask the doctor what happened to my daughter. But the doctor replied, "Your daughter is fine." When they got to the doctor's office, he opened up the unfortunate story of the operation to them by telling them complications left Kioma unable to conceive in the future. The Okekes were heartbroken yet again. This was the last straw for the Okekes. Furious at the betrayal and the harm done to their daughter by the once revered man of God to their family, Mr. Okeke vowed to their family. Mr. Okeke vowed to seek justice even if it would cost him his life. The next day, they decided to visit an old lawyer friend to pursue justice. They filed a case against Samuel and the church, hiring a determined human rights lawyer to represent them. The news quickly spread, making headlines and shaking the church to its core. The once thriving Holy Fire Assembly began to crumble. Members left in numbers, disgusted by the scandal and the cover-up. The Holy Fire Assembly wasn't the pillar of moral discipline, so they left to other churches, sponsors withdrew their funding, and the church's reputation plummeted. The massive auditorium that was once filled with worshipers now sat nearly empty on Sundays. The trial was widely covered in the media. Kioma courageously took the stand, sharing her story despite the stigma. Doctors testified about the damage caused by the unsafe procedure, and evidence of Samuel's misconduct was undeniable. Samuel was arraigned in court alongside his father, Pastor Emmanuel, and the court found Samuel and his father guilty of exploitation and unsafe termination, sentencing him to 15 years in prison. Pastor Emmanuel was fined heavily and forced to step down as the church's leader. Holy Fire Assembly eventually closed its doors, its legacy tarnished beyond repair. Pastor Emmanuel's family was left disgraced, struggling to rebuild their lives. Years passed, and Kioma sat for her JAM and WACE exams. The results were out, and she passed in flying colors, and it was a happy moment in the home of the Okekes. Her admission to the university to pursue a law degree was her declaration of independence, a commitment to taking control of her life and her destiny. She saw the law not just as a career, but as a weapon of justice, one that could right the wrongs done to her and others who had been silenced by the system. Kioma's strength and resilience became known far beyond the small village. She was no longer the victim of her circumstances, but a woman who had taken control of her own destiny, refusing to let the mistakes of others define her future. Pastor Emmanuel, now once a respected pastor, remained behind bars, his reputation destroyed. Samuel also paid for his crime, his 8-year sentence looming ahead of him. But Kioma had moved on. She had found her purpose, and with every passing day, she was becoming more of the woman she had always dreamed of being. Kioma joined the school choir and once again found her voice back again. She took her studies seriously, and her parents were even more proud of her. Kioma passed all her papers in flying colors. One fateful afternoon on her way to a lecture, she met David, a handsome-looking guy who smiled at her grimly and called towards her. "Kioma, wait." He introduced himself to Kioma. David was a 400-level student of medicine and surgery. He had a foreign accent due to his long stay in the United States of America. He had just moved to Nigeria a few years ago to live with his parents and know more about the Nigerian culture. Kioma made a new friend on campus. David was a very caring young man. He would walk Kioma down to her hostel every day and made sure she was happy always. Time flied so fast, and soon it was graduation. Finally, it was time for Kioma to step into a new life ahead of her. David moved back to the new life ahead of her. David moved back to the United States after studying medicine to become a medical doctor. Kioma discovered a hidden note in her old notes. On the front page it read, "From your lovely friend, David." She was curious and opened it in a hurry, and the later read, "Hey Kioma, I know by the time you open this later, I will be far away in Texas. Please don't forget about what we have shared. Over the years in school, I promise to come back for you. My love, please take care of yourself for me. I love you, bye." Years passed, and Kioma graduated from the university. She got her first job in a law firm in a faraway city of Iperindo in Osun State. She was the youngest lawyer in the firm, and everyone loved her. One sunny afternoon while they were at the office, her colleague came to her desk and informed her that the boss would like to see her. She wondered what this could be about. She knocked, and a loud voice replied, "You can come." She walked in embarrassed her. Shinda asked in his deep-toned voice, "Kioma, how are you catching?" And she replied, "Very well, sir." He then informed her about a new court case. She was appointed to be the defendant, and the court sitting was in 2 weeks. She was given the documents, and out of her surprised the name of the person she was going to defend was Samuel Kachi, the same man who raped her years ago. I hope you enjoyed the tale. If so, like the video, share it with your family and friends, comment on it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell for more enchanting tales like this one. Goodbye.